Founder's Guide to the Techstars application. In today's session, we are going to discuss what are the key components in a successful Techstars application. So how do you make your app truly stand out? And I'm going to remind you, if you are a founder or anyone joining us here on Zoom today, go ahead and leave your questions in the Q&A box. And if you are joining us on LinkedIn, go ahead and leave us all of your questions in the comments. And we will also be answering questions from LinkedIn at the very end in today's session. So my name is Corina Hierro, and I am the Global Startup Scout here at Techstars. And let me introduce our lovely speakers today. Tim Dorr, Managing Director of Techstars Impact, powered by Cox Enterprises, and Techstars Atlanta, powered by Cox Enterprises. And of course, Alisha Golden, our Investment Manager at Techstars Toronto Accelerator. So Tim and Alisha, please go ahead and take it away.
So I'm Tim Dorr, Managing Director of Techstars Atlanta and Techstars Impact. If you're applying right now, Techstars Atlanta is open. Techstars Impact is currently going on, so I'm meeting you between workshops. We just had a product market fit one a short while ago. Both of my programs are in person. We're partnered with Cox on those, so Cox provides us office space and everything. And I'm based out of Atlanta, as the name implies. Currently at home. I had to meet with an electrician just a while ago, but such is life. And yeah, happy to be here answering any questions you guys got about applying to Techstars.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. I'm Alisha Golden. I'm the investment manager for Techstars Toronto. I think so far I've done about 6 or 7 programs, which is, I don't know how many founders, that's a lot, it's over hundreds. Have reviewed a couple thousand applications, met with hundreds and hundreds of founders just like all of you. And so I have some pretty good insight on what makes not only a really compelling application, but what is really critical for you to be able to pitch yourself and your business, not only to us, but other investors, that sets you up for success and really sets you up to not only come across clear and effective, but to ultimately win and raise money. So that's me. I think we can just jump right into it. We thought like the best use of this time would be to perhaps just go through the actual application, to walk you all through it and to just give our sort of best practices and tips on how to approach answering these questions and really how you should be thinking through them as a founder, but then also as a team, a founding team, when you are applying to a Techstars program. I think the really great thing about applying to a Techstars program is, you know, if you've never raised capital before, it's a great entree point into sort of the structure of how you should be pitching overall, and the key and critical questions you should be able to answer about your business. And if you have already raised capital, it's a great refresher or exercise to really tighten your pitch, and to be able to speak about your business very concisely and precisely, in order to generate interest, obviously investment, and just the support you might need to really scale it forward. So with that being said, I think the best next step is for me to I'm going to share my screen. We have sort of a mock application that we're just going to walk through. And as Corina said, please, if you have questions on LinkedIn or in this chat, put them in the Q&A. We can really treat this as a dialogue versus a monologue. And as you guys have questions, Corina, just let us know. And we can interject and answer them in real time based on the section of the application that we're in. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay, can you all see it? Yeah?
You're all good.
Awesome. Okay, so this is very like straightforward, and no need for explanation. This is the portal you'll see when you are jumping into the application. You'll have to obviously create a profile, basic stuff, name, email, title, location. And Tim, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. As far as location goes, be honest and transparent. We have programs around the world and key market cities. And most of our programs are sort of agnostic location wise when we are reviewing an application, so long as if the program is in person, you'd be willing to come there for the program or agree to any sort of hybrid programming that would take place.
Yep.
Anything that
And given that I have in-person programs, it's definitely a concern for mine, especially when I'm looking through applications, knowing that people can actually get here in person. I have one company in my current impact class that's from London, really easy to get over here. It was just really a question of were they willing to do that, which they were. Luckily, the US has a visa waiver program with the UK, so it's actually really, really simple to get over. And outside of that, then it's making sure we understand the visa implications there and what's necessary to get them into the country. Um, one thing that will come up on the application at the very end is program selection. So this will be where you actually like follow through and decide what program makes the most sense for you. If you've come in via an application or a button, I should say, to apply on a particular accelerator's website, on the techstars.com website, it will pre-select that for you at the end. But when you get to the end, you'll be able to choose through some of these kinds of concerns. Where is the program located? What kind of format does it have? Is it either an in-person program where I need to be there physically the entire 13 weeks of that program? Or is it going to be hybrid, which is, in my mind, essentially virtual? We have one very virtual focused program called Anywhere, which has kind of traditionally been the catch-all for people that don't know what region they want to go to. A lot more of our programs have moved to this kind of hybrid format where they have a base in a particular area, but they're able to operate with companies where they are throughout the world, which is great. You get that kind of flexibility to be able to be where you need to be, especially if you have a business that is maybe based in a particular region, and still be able to participate in all the things that Techstars offers, and get access to our network in particular. And I've noticed with most hybrid programs, there might be a week or two where they do some in-person stuff. It's always treated as optional, but it is really beneficial if you can get that week free to travel somewhere. Sometimes it's not even at that location of where that program may be necessarily based out of. It might be an offsite to go get some team building in there. But I constantly harp about this with every chance I get. I don't think Techstars talks about this enough personally, in my opinion, that the camaraderie and the closeness of a class is so valuable. So getting that time to spend with each other, like with my programs, even though they're in person, we do like a pre-program retreat where we go off, usually North Georgia here, a few hours out of the city, get a cabin, kind of hunker down. It's just us. So you get, us and say 15 founders or so kind of in a room, and getting to know each other as people before we dive into the businesses and the startups and get to work with stuff. And just having that basis is great. But again, if you need to be in a particular region, make sure you're considering all the hybrid programs you can see, especially if they're a good thesis fit with you. I was just referring a company over to our Techstars workforce development program the other day, because he was literally building a company that built a workforce who was in renewable energy. And it made a lot of sense to go to that program because it's hybrid based. You can go there. You don't have to actually physically be where the program is based out of Denver. You can be wherever. In that startup's case, they were based out of New York. And while they can consider the New York programs, maybe that doesn't make the most sense for them. The trade-off there might be, the other program that would make sense for them might be Techstars Alabama Energy Tech, that's powered by Alabama Power. And Matt runs a great program out there, but it's in person. So, that might be a great thesis fit. but it might not be a great locality fit if that founder wasn't willing to go down to Birmingham for 13 weeks and make that trade-off. Maybe that wouldn't work there. So this will be something you can kind of evaluate. You can do this well before you even get to the application. Once you go to our accelerators page on techstars.com, you can filter by all these attributes. You can search for text too. So if you're looking for program focused on healthcare, you can type in the word health and you'll probably get like all of our programs related to that. Whatever kind of things match with you. It's usually those two dimensions though. It's where is the program located, and what are they focused on? And then maybe like the third dimension might be what format do they have? But these are things that you might consider upfront. And again, we have a wide berth of programs, I think 55, 56 now. I don't even know. I can't keep count. But we have a lot. So what's great is we probably have a home for you at Techstars. And you can kind of be the selector there. You can choose whatever works best for you rather than trying to make something work. You can find an optimal fit.
Yeah, I think it's also a really great practice, whether you've raised capital or not before, but how to just look at sort of an investor pipeline, because ultimately whoever you take capital from, they're going to be partners, and just making sure and it's an aligned fit, in our case, whether it's based on location or thesis, the same goes for just looking at your investor base overall. And, would they make great partners and why? And just being very clear about that at the onset, instead of going into these conversations or these applications from the sort of perspective or dynamic of, pick me, pick me, pick me, being very crystal clear about who you want to work with or whose money you want to take and why. It's just a good form of function practice.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
next.
I would say that as a general thing for any founder out there when they're considering their investors, just because it's not just the investor that gets to say no, you get to say no too. It's your business. Make sure you're doing business with people you want to do business with, not just a bunch of wallets that are willing to give you money. Be selective, and you should be selective about the programs you consider for Techstars as well. So find that partnership that works best for you.
Yeah, totally. Not much else here. I will say I don't want to breeze past the LinkedIn URL component of this. Super, super critical. Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. This is essentially how sourcing teams are going to be profiling you initially in your application before they get a chance to meet you, before they get a chance to sort of do a deep dive and diligence around your business and any sort of supplemental information you might be able to provide, making sure that, you're not currently actively employed somewhere else. That's always going to raise a bit of a flag. Like, can you focus on this program and build this, at least as it pertains to what your LinkedIn says. I always like to go a little bit above there and just making sure you're somewhat active. Essentially, what you're doing in building a business is, as a founder, CEO, I mean, it's a multi-hat wearing role, but a large portion of that hat is going to be able to sell your business, sell yourself to investors, to customers, et cetera. And being able to show versus tell that you can actually do that based on your LinkedIn definitely helps. It is not a complete deal breaker, whether, how active you are or not, but just as a rule to keep in mind, your LinkedIn matters. And please, please, please do not tick the box, I don't have a LinkedIn. That almost feels like a trick question.
That's fair. I mean, to Alicia's point, it's like pushing up to the top of the pile versus like being willing to float to the bottom. And yeah, one thing that will be helpful there too is kind of your background. Like, what do you have experience with, and is it relevant to this company? I mean, sometimes, like she said, that is just not directly obvious, and that's why we dig in more. But again, these are things that kind of bring you up to the top of the pile, and we'll reach out to have an interview with you pretty quickly if it's something where it's like there's a lot of good founder market fit in particular. That's always something we're looking for, is like, how well are you connected to this problem? Like I have a founder in my current impact class, a company called Cora, and she's building an application to do correlations of health data to determine trends so you can improve your health with chronic conditions. And she's literally alive because of her app. there was a medication she was on that was a pathway to death for her. And she found a correlation and a way to get off of that medication through her own app. So really good market fit there, founder market fit in particular. Um, I always love pointing her out because, like, again, like that kind of binary outcome of like alive and dead now because of her app is a pretty substantial one. But we're going to be looking for those kinds of things, kind of call outs to kind of bubble you up to the top. Again, this isn't about like necessarily saying no. It's because it's so early at this stage. It's more having reason to be excited about you.
Yeah, I'm really, helping you all have that sort of competitive edge when it comes to us reviewing your app. Okay, this is all just sort of general information about yourself. Um, Depending on the program location, I think US-based founders, we look at that. I think that's more sort of a visa filtering sort of signal for us, is this going to be a founder or a team that we have to really think through, like the visa process? Are they able to come to our program if they choose to do so, and we want to invest in them immediately? Or, is that going to be a hurdle to us working with them? Let's see. Anything else stand out to you, Tim, as I'm going through these basic demo questions? I don't think
Not
so.
particularly. Some programs like mine with Impact in particular, we may focus on some of the demographics there. I like to hire diverse founders, or not hire, accept diverse founders. Um, mainly because it's more that I like diversity of the businesses, and that leads to diversity of the founders. So not necessarily like picking, a bunch of non-straight white males. I'm looking for folks that are working on various interesting problems that can kind of all come together, and naturally as a result of that, my last like two programs in a row have been 100% on diversity. Um, so it's not something I'm necessarily like. There's no filter I'm doing that on, but it is something that kind of comes through naturally. And it's just great to know that like we're reaching founders that aren't being reached elsewhere. We want to make sure that we're doing this right, and we're doing that with intention. Because there's not a lot of money going to non-straight white male founders, just to be frank. I mean, stats bear this out repeatedly. Um, so we want to do our best to try and change that. And it's a whole unwinding of a giant systemic problem. But we can do our part, especially being the largest pre-seed investor in the world. We can have a pretty big stick to swing. And we want to do that with some intention there. So we ask for these things because we're trying to do our best, and make sure we have the information to empower us to do our best.
Yeah, well said. Okay, now we're getting into the meat of it. This is the biggest lift, I think, on your end. And here we get into the details, right? Your name, your URL. I can tell you right now, applications that don't have a URL attached to them, I automatically put in the sort of pass file. That one, it's a big step in us being able to evaluate beyond a deck that, okay, this is a real thing that exists. And I think part of the evaluation on our side comes in, from an investor standpoint, is like, we're willing to put some skin in the game through capital and through support and through network and time investment in being able to help accelerate your company to the next stage over a course of 13 weeks. And one of the things that I'm always looking for is like, okay, what skin do you have in the game? And sometimes that's loosely defined as traction, but there are also a lot of sub signals that reflect, okay, this is the skin in the game you have, and the bet and the risk that you're already taking in the direction of this venture. Anything to add, Tim?
Yeah, totally agree. One thing also just on a meta level to point out here, like this is for many people, a stop-start process. You may not get through this all at one go. Don't worry if you like hit a question where it's like, I don't know. This actually can be a benefit of the application process, is like prompting you to like think about some things that, well, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, you haven't really put too much thought into lately. It's a good chance to make sure all your bases are being covered. Like, yeah, do I have like a simple short tagline for my company? No, I don't. I haven't really thought about that. I mean, it's something as simple as that. Or, like, what is our attraction so far? How are we actually defining that? Like, how do I describe to somebody how well we're doing? These are good like prompts to have, that maybe prod you in a particular direction. So there's hopefully some benefit to doing that. And again, if you need to step away from the application, think it through for a little while, that's totally fine. This is all stop start.
100%. I extremely appreciate those who can have a really tight and clean startup description, 1 or 2 lines. It just helps. We get thousands and thousands of applications, and so having something a bit clear there, in conjunction with all the other information on our first pass, is just really helpful to help us determine, okay, double click, pass for now, circle back. It moves you, as Tim said, to the top of the pile quicker in our review process. Again, it's not a complete deal breaker if it's not like the perfect description or perfect tagline, but it does help. So just be thinking about it. I think all the tagline, the description, and even your deck, right? There's some really great resources online. If you haven't already put yours together and you're putting it together in light of this application process, definitely in that sense, get some expert help. Look at some basic formats that can help you streamline how to communicate who you are, what you do, why you're doing it, the market size, things like that. It's helpful for us as we're reviewing, and it's one of the few things that moves you from application to interview. And that's ultimately where you want to be. The goal of, I think, this session is to give you some sort of insight and best practices on how to rise to the top of the pile. And, once you are, it's just like cold outreach to investors, once you're on a call, right, you have a little bit more power, control to direct what happens next, beyond them just sort of reviewing a cold email. And so when I'm giving this feedback or this insight now, this is me helping you sort of stand out and to get that sort of first interview that will hopefully and ultimately lead to more. So these are some of the things that support that. I think, gosh, I wish I could. I know one of our mentors, Raymond Luck, who has a blog that's LUK. I can put a link in the chat. He has a blog on some really great sort of pitch deck structures that can also help you start thinking through how to, do a 1 or 2 liner of the company and essentially a tagline. But just a Google search as you're putting these things together can be really effective to just, like I said, move you to the top of the pile. Anything to add here, Tim?
The only other thing I'd add is there's a question there about, is your company incorporated? I believe that also asks like what form it's incorporated in. This is not a deal breaker whatsoever. This happens all the time that people are not in the structure. But for ease of use, if you're already on the path, it maybe will make later stages of our diligence process in particular a little bit faster. If you're going to need to be structured as a C corporation, at least here in the States, if you have a U.S. entity, that's great. If you don't have one, we have a number of jurisdictions we work with verbatim, and they're equivalents essentially of a C corp. In the U.S., it's going to be the most common structure for investable companies, mainly because there is a tax implication for a non-C corp. So like an S corp or an LLC, those will have a greater tax burden on your investors. So investors are going to tell you, I'm not going to give you money until you restructure into a C corp, because I don't want to lose a bunch of money to the government that I don't have to. Which is, just a minor detail here and there, but and depending on what services you may have used to set up your company, if it was a lawyer or was something like Stripe Atlas, or one of these other kind of out of the box tools, might already be in that structure, or it is an easy like submit a doc and now it's converted into a C corp kind of thing. But just something to keep in mind, if you're thinking about applying to Techstars or just taking investment in general, if you're like an LLC or an S corp or something in the United States, or like a sole proprietorship, establish a C Corp based entity. Doesn't have to be in Delaware or anything like that. That's the most common, but you know, as long as in the C Corp structure, that's all we care about. And future investors will care about.
Mhm. Yeah, great catch. The print is so small. I'm trying to see. Okay, product demo URL, team introduction URL. I think these are optional. They're helpful.
Mhm.
They're helpful for us as we're reviewing. If you have them, great. If you don't, um, it's okay. I think with the product demo URL, I would definitely say quality over quantity. I think if you're just gonna like hire an animation sort of off of Fiverr to sort of animate your deck,
Yeah.
we don't need that. And it's probably
Yeah.
a waste of your time and money. But if it's really critical and you've really thought it through, or it's just something you've created or want to create that can help really effectively communicate what your product is, then definitely do it. But just to have it to tick the box on this application, not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's really helpful if it's showing your actual product in use. If you have something that maybe is in the real world, maybe you're just recording it on video, but if it's a technology product in particular, show us that, narrate over it. That's really helpful rather than
Yes.
just a silent video. Um, but yeah, like Alicia said, like animation's not really helpful because you're not showing us the actual thing, and that's what we want to see.
Mhm.
If it's in some sort of early alpha, beta state and you're like, I don't know if anyone's going to like it. We're not your customers. We're just evaluating, do you have something at all? And that could be an opportunity for us to work on something together. So it's not so much about like putting on your best face. It's about just showing us where you're at honestly so that we can evaluate and see where our opportunity is to help.
100%. Anything to add about the team video?
I mean, just having a good chat through, if it's a solo founder, just chatting through what your thoughts are, how you got into this, what your plans are for the business, kind of where you need help even. Be honest with as a theme for the entire application, like be honest with where you're at. This isn't about like impressing us and per se. It's about, at least for me, like when I'm evaluating companies to choose for my class, I'm looking for the ones that can help the most. I'm not necessarily looking for knock it out of the park winners because I'm not going to have as much of an impact on their success versus a company where I can take it from like, maybe they might work out to like definitely going to like knock it out of the park. That's where I want to have the biggest amount of impact. So, if you're being honest throughout, just tell us, how things are going, how you're feeling, where you think you need help, where you have weaknesses. Nothing wrong with showing weaknesses. That's just giving us a more honest view of your business.
Yeah. And even being able to clarify in that segment of like why you've even considered wanting to join the Techstars, where you see Techstars really playing a role in supporting like the next stage of growth in your business.
Hmm?
Okay. Okay, this is just co-founder information. Great topic. Co-founders. Nice to have. Great to have. I always tell solo founders if they're applying, we do not say no to solo founders because you're a solo founder. However, what I will say is the program is really robust and intense, and it can be really difficult for a solo founder, especially if you don't have a team yet or you have a really small team and you are still sort of getting your sea legs in regard to delegation and operations. So it's something to keep in mind for sure. Um, because like I said, we are an accelerator, not an incubator. And so we run full speed for 13 weeks. And I just like to have founders mentally prepare for that. That's very real.
Yeah, I mean, so actually, here in Atlanta, we have a friend of the program. Her name's Susan Cohen. She's a professor over at UGA, and she actually studies startup accelerators. She has a number of like published papers on it and everything. She's a font of knowledge for us. Um, and she's actually got like a number of like research like papers showing that like between single founder and multi-founder teams, there is no difference in outcomes there. Um, Outcome chances for success, the scale of that success, it's all about equal. So as a result, that's why we're not like exclusionary to just multi-founder teams, or just teams that exist versus single solo people. But like Alisha said, it's going to be easier to like split the difference on, say there's some workshop, but there's also a conference you want to go to at the same time. How do you do that? Outside of like just holding Zoom up on your phone while you walk around some conference floor, and not really engaging, you can split that a little bit easier if you have multiple people. Um, but we do accommodate obviously the needs of a solo founder as well. So we're not going to be hard asses about it if you're just not able to get in the building. Um, if something's going to benefit your business versus benefit like your relationship with Techstars, just do the business thing.
Yep.
If you have to make that choice, go to the conference. I literally got a founder right now who's not at Techstars Impact this week because he's at a conference in Charlotte. But that's going to benefit his business way more than what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just sort of like if you are a solo founder, like just think that through and be thinking about how and setting up sort of systems and structures in your personal life and in the business to sort of like streamline and delegate if you are to join the program. It'll make your life better overall. Okay. Progress, traction. Okay. Oh, this brings me to something that I did not bring up in the pitch deck component. And as I recall, based on my last sweep of the application structure, I don't think we have a question for this, which is market size, but it's absolutely critical. Please, 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 please have an understanding of the market size you are attempting to serve with your company, with your business, and how that sort of connects to the opportunity that lies therein for investors. And then that connects to your traction and where you are. Because I've had many founders say, what determines traction, and are there certain sort of benchmarks of traction that I need to have in order to be considered for a Techstars program? And to that, I always say, traction can mean a lot of things, but if you're lighter on traction, whether that's users, revenue, etc., but the market size is huge, and maybe you've set up partnerships, and you've got some groundwork laid in a variety of other areas, they can kind of balance off of each other. And so that's what made me think about market size. But yeah, and please also, before, just quickly, don't make up numbers here because we will figure it out when we, if it's interesting and we do a deeper dive in diligence. I've seen companies just put random numbers in here, and sometimes they'll equate traction to money raised. So they'll put like money raised in these slots and not revenue, which is not the same. Tim,
Also,
I'll let
like,
you jump in.
when it comes to traction, it may not be like revenue, may not be user counts. You might be pre-revenue, you might be pre-product even. These are fine. I accept program or companies like that all the time. What I'm looking at that point is traction more in the form of understanding of your market. So much like Alisha was saying, like on conveying how big is your market. It's also understanding what that market looks like. How are you going to like attempt to enter it? Like, what's your go-to-market strategy? Which I believe is a subsequent question. But when it comes to the traction, like your earliest traction is really just how much work have you done to understand that market? How many customer discovery calls have you had? How many customers do you have on a wait list? What kind of marketing efforts have you done so far? I've companies come in that maybe did something prototypical before, and that's been parlayed into this new thing. I had a dating company where they did this double date service during college, and they facilitated 1,000 dates to occur using just a Google form and a spreadsheet, actually. So entirely pre-product, and they got all this traction and learned a bunch about their market that way. And that was really impressive to me, that they were able to do that with essentially no marketing and no tools, no technology. They just got some people to fill out a form. And then parlay that into then first their wait list was one of their KPIs during program. And then once they got the product launched, it was getting users and getting dates to occur on the application. So, these are all like steps along the way, and each one is like its own form of traction. So while we ask you for revenue here, that's not necessarily the single sole source of traction we're looking at. And you may have revenue, it's still relevant to talk about like how well you understand your market. How many discovery calls you've done, how many feedback forms you've filled in from customers, how many people are on the wait list for the next version of the product or whatever. Tell us all these things that kind of give us a sense of how well you understand your market and how far you've progressed into that market.
Yes, 100%. And Tim, I'd love to hear your feedback on this, but I've had companies with, some of, cutting edge ideas or inventions. And when the conversation, this is upon interview, right? The conversation around go to market and distribution comes up, and they are, I don't want to say clueless, but they haven't really thought it through at all.
Mhm.
And they're just kind of operating from that mindset, if we build it, they will come. It To me, it's like, okay, that's going to be a huge hurdle, a mountain, and I don't even know if it's worth it for us, because distribution and go to market is everything. So, and just to kind of echo what Tim was saying, like how you're thinking through that, what sort of traction and progress you've made to that end, whether it's customer interviews through like a jobs to be done format or things like that, of just getting really crystal clear around understanding the market and getting really intimate with who your customers are, at least who you think they are right now, and going full steam in that direction. It's everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think what that's actually getting at least when it comes to Techstars, is it's giving us an indication of how coachable you are and how willing to listen you are. It's a really important thing as a founder to listen to what the market is telling you and not try to dictate what the market should do, because they aren't going to listen to you. I mean, when you're marketing, you're just telling them about how awesome your product is, but they're not going to use it unless it's actually worthwhile. So if you're not willing to like listen to the market, with the way our programs are structured, it's mostly mentor based. And you're going to be getting a lot of input and suggestions and ideas from your mentors. And if you're not willing to listen to them, then you're just not getting the value of Techstars. Like, it's going to be a valueless experience for you. Whereas instead, if you're willing to listen to them, and you demonstrated that you listen, but you also verify. So trust but verify on things. And you do the work of, okay, here's an idea. Let me go validate if that idea is true or not, and then take that either as a new direction to head or something to ignore because it didn't turn out to be true. Like, if you're thinking in that way, you're thinking in the right way to think as a founder in general. But more importantly, for our process and the way our programs run, you're going to get much more value out of it if you're willing to just listen. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have control over your business. You got to do what everyone else says. Like, it's more that like you've set up a system where you build confidence in the plan that you're building rather than arrogance in that plan.
100%. 100%. Okay. Strategy. Okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, and this kind of echoes much of what we've been talking about, how you make money, your target audience, your competitors. Just a quick note here, please, please, please don't say you're the first to ever do something or that you have no competitors. It's absolutely not true. Someone somewhere is doing something similar, that, some insights can be pulled from, or just even sort of market presence, operation insight can be pulled from. When you as a founder say that, when you answer that question with saying, you don't have any competitors, it highlights a blind spot in you, that is essentially a flag for us that you are not as versed on your industry or the market itself as you should be. Competitive advantage, really think through this. and this is, if you haven't already thought through this and don't have these answers as you're going through this application, this would probably be a really good point in the application to save, and then come back to and workshop that answer, because I think like it's always going to be changing, evolving, and refining, but really thinking through what your competitive advantage is, whether that's sort of your career experience leading up to founding this company, or your network that you have access to, a pipeline of customers based on your network, how you're thinking through solving a problem, some IP that you have access to or that you've patented or trademarked. I don't know, it could be anything. But I mean, this is going to be sort of your secret sauce. Why now? These all kind of tie into what we've been talking about. Why is it critical for, the world, the market you're in, to have, what you're building now or in the near future? Distribution. How are you going to acquire customers? Biggest flag I see on applications is, we're going to promote through social media, and like just very vague answers of like, we're going to promote through social media and road shows and TV and radio. That is not a customer acquisition strategy. Those are vehicles, right? But what is the actual strategy? This is another point in the application where maybe you need to pause, go workshop or brainstorm with yourself or your team or a mentor, really flesh out something, well thought through, and come back and answer that question. Anything to add?
Again, on the kind of meta aspect of this, or a technical detail here, is that like, well, there is that submit giant blue button at the bottom. What you're submitting to at that point is kind of an unassociated application. I just looked in our system. We have 29,400 applications that are sitting in some state, and it's going into that pool. So very, very low chance that anyone's ever going to find you at that point if you just hit submit. So don't worry, you haven't like screwed up the application if you're like, oh, I messed something up. You can go back. If you notice on that next screenshot, there's an edit application button. You can always go back and change these numbers or the answers or anything that kind of you got wrong or you just need to update it. It's always good, like as you get, like say you have a revenue stream, like just updating us and how the revenue is going, letting us see kind of that hopefully big hockey stick graph you got going there. But making sure that we have the most up-to-date kind of version of things. Companies, especially at the early stage, move quick and change quick, so you might need to go back in there and update a few times. But basically, once you've hit that submit button, you're technically submitted, and somebody like us, we can find you in the application system, but it's going to require some serious spelunking to like find you in there at the moment. So you haven't yet really put yourself out there. It's when you do the program selection, which is the final step, that's when you're actually getting onto somebody like Alisha's radar. Anastasia Simon, who manages my sourcing, will be the one who sees you there. We all have kind of our first step people that manage all these processes and make my life a lot easier. But yeah, if you don't stress too much, if you're like, I don't feel like that was the right answer there, go back, edit it. It's okay. You can kind of evolve it as needed. But do you have some intention with how you think through these things? The more clarity you give us, the better a view we have into your business, and the more excited we can get about it.
Yep. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Program preference.
Program selection part.
Yeah. Which Tim, you touched on at the beginning. Anything else you want to add there?
Just so folks understand the format there, you have a primary selection and an alternate selection slot. You must choose a primary. You don't have to choose an alternate if nothing makes sense. And again, if you clicked on a button that's on a particular Accelerator's page on Techstars.com, this will probably already be filled out in that case. If you're just going to apply that Techstars.com, or you're hitting the big green button at the top of the screen on any page, it won't have anything associated here already. And again, you have not, until you submit these selections, you have not been like actually really bubbled up to a specific program's pool of applications there. So you're in that big, almost 30,000 application pool versus like a smaller, still big, but smaller, probably 1,000 application pool. And I don't know if you have the screenshots for it, but like once you click that select primary option, you'll be presented with this screen. This kind of mirrors some of the screens that you'll see on techstars.com when you're looking through the accelerator list, where you can see kind of some of the criteria of that particular program. It might be, where it's located, what format it has, when it runs as well. Most Techstars programs are moving to a 2-term schedule starting in March and September. We have some partner programs like mine, which are offset a bit. Mine start in January and July. But it's really a handful that are left at that point. Most will be kind of opening up their applications on March 4th, I believe. Is that right? I
March
believe that's when
4th.
the next application cycle opens up for the September programs.
Oh,
Uh,
geez.
yeah,
Or I think it's a little bit
today,
after the
like
March
20
11th
that are
start.
available at the moment. And then we have, I believe March is when the next group will open up. Here, I
Yeah.
can live right now. Yeah, we have 3 programs available. Myself, Techstars Tokyo, and Workforce Development are currently open. And then March 4th, a whole slew more open up after that. Now's the time to like get your application started, fill it in, and have things ready so that March 4th you can just smash the button and be good to go. And you'll be able to choose all those additional programs. And then, like I was saying, once you hit submit, then you've really gotten into the pool there. You're actually on those programs' radar. And, just kind of wait. We'll reach out to you. We have a very long and arduous process of getting through all these applications and getting that narrowed down. But if we feel like it's a great fit, or even a potential fit, we'll reach out to you and make the next steps happen. In my case, it's usually just like a first little quick Zoom call, getting to know each other. And as the months progress where the applications are open, we'll continue to just check in, see how things are going. I know Anastasia, my investment principal, she likes to hand out homework every once in a while. So she might give you like, hey, can you come up with a business model canvas, or can you, update your pitch deck or send a 1-pager or something like that. Yeah, there'll be updates and information throughout the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we successfully got through the entire application, and it seems like we have quite a slew of questions here. So for the last couple of minutes, let's go ahead and try to answer some questions.
All right, Tim and Alisha, I do see a couple of questions regarding visas or if founders have to relocate full-time during program. Can you explain a little bit about how to do that if you are living outside of the US?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously something that's going to be more difficult in certain jurisdictions. Like I was looking at like the Mexican embassies wait times, it's like multiple years. There are ways kind of around this. In particular, there's what's called an O1 visa. It's for an exceptional person. So like celebrities use it. But there is justification for startup founders, particularly ones who are getting into a Techstars program, to qualify under that. One of our global network partners, which is one of our kind of partners out in the ecosystem, is LegalPad. They offer a discount to Techstars companies to run through their process, and they can kind of help you with some of those answers there. It's always good to have some sort of legal resource there. So whether it's LegalPad or your own immigration lawyer, some jurisdictions it's much easier because we have a visa waiver program with them. Most of the EU and UK is like that. So those ones will be a little bit easier to get over here. The other thing that will be just a thing to note will be where you're incorporated, and just making sure that that is something we can either directly invest in, or if you need to establish a U.S. entity to make the investment happen. Again, we can kind of walk you through that as we get to it. But if you're considering the visa path, it's one of those things that kind of get started now. I know it has costs associated with it, so it's a little bit hard to kind of recommend something that is on a potential chance. But in most places, once you get that established, or you've done it once, now you're on the kind of renewal path, and that's much faster the next time around. Um, and again, it may be easier to do that the second time through. Um, One thing I will say is that like we're not going to be your lawyer at all for that process, so we cannot like actually advise you on these things on legal matters. Much the same way we can't advise you on, should you sign the contract or not. Obviously, we're going to say yes. Um, but you want to make sure that you have a good resource there if you need it, particularly if you have a complex situation. You just want to make sure it's not going to be a problem for getting into the program. And again, a lot of them are hybrid nowadays, so that will be a very minor concern. It's really just, can I get a week? And I can't, no big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. I also see a bunch of questions regarding, what happens when your startup doesn't have that much traction, or maybe you are pre-MVP stage or pre-revenue stage. How does a founder know, am I too early for Techstars? How do they decipher that?
I mean, a really good book I recommend for every early stage founder read is called The Mom Test. It's a book on customer discovery. In particular, it's a really good practical read. It walks you through exactly like what to like say to somebody, like what the talk tracks are, what they look like, and kind of why you ask these questions. Um, and you can start doing those at any time. Like if you're just a human being existing in the world and you know how to reach somebody in your market, you can start doing them right away. And they can be so valuable. You can start gathering that data and just tell us, I've talked to like 100 people so far, or I've talked to like 500 people even. It's a good start to make sure that we've got, a founder who has great founder market fit. So you're well aligned and well positioned to enter and know this market well just from the get go. But on top of that, you're just gathering real objective data that you're using to build your business on. And especially for the early stage where you're pre-revenue, pre-product, I mean, those are going to be like the ways you can kind of demonstrate, I haven't built it yet, but I know this problem needs to be solved. And here's exactly who my customers will be, because I've already been starting to talk to them.
Awesome. I see a couple of questions of founders regarding full-time employment. So they're building companies as they are full-time employees. How does Techstars look at, the time commitments around a program and building a company?
Alisha, do you want to answer?
Well, as I said before, it's a very robust program. So at some points before or upon entering the Techstars program, you are going to have to make a decision. Do you believe in this thing the way you want us to believe in it? Or, are you hedging? And I understand like there's a lot of life that, comes into play in regard to making decisions like that. But ultimately, I think that is the path of being a founder, which is, making tough decisions and betting on yourself. And so all that to say, can you work a job, another job and do the program? I would say more than likely not. I think that would be a big challenge in one, getting the most out of the program, because we are investors, right? At the end of the day. And so it's not free money. We're taking a chunk of your company, favorably, but we're still taking a chunk of your company. And so in order for you to want to get the most out of the equity, you've got to give to us in order to be a part of the program, and to get our investment. It'd be, it would behoove you to really lean in and focus on getting the most out of the program. And that would require probably being fully present, and able to participate.
Awesome. This is a question from Douglas Smith. He says, I applied about a year ago, got an interview, but got rejected. I pivoted the company. Should I apply differently or bring up the reason for my pivot in the application?
I bring up the reason for pivot because that shows that you're like willing to listen and grow the company and evolve it, based on feedback you're hearing, and that's a great sign. I mean, many companies take like half a dozen applications before they finally find the right Techstars home for them. I think the average is like 2 to 3 applications per company. So like we have a huge number of applications and only so many slots. Like I did over 1,000 applications for Techstars Impact, and I only have 10 companies. So it's literally 1%, or less than 1%. So, there's just a low statistical chance that you're going to get in. And that's not necessarily a knock against you. There's a number of reasons why things just don't work out, and that's totally okay. And I think if you can show growth and listening and willingness to kind of evolve the business based on what the market demands rather than what you're demanding of it, it will reflect well on you. That wouldn't be in any way anything that would be a negative for me, at least.
Tim and Alisha, lastly, do you guys have any words of encouragement for maybe founders that have already applied to Techstars, but were not able to get in?
Keep building. Anybody doing anything significant in this world, you're going to be faced with rejection. And oftentimes that rejection perhaps has nothing to do with you. Sometimes it does. Okay, let's be self-aware in the process. But, you could have been rejected because you weren't a direct thesis fit for a program, or where you were at that time in the company, is not where you are today. That is the journey, right? Of doing anything significant in this world. It's being able to, as I like to so elegantly say, get punched in the face and get back up. So not to say like a rejection is punch in the face, but you're going to hear no a lot, not just from us, but from customers, from other investors, from potential partners. And so what, right? That's the game. So keep going, keep building. There was a quote I saw today, which was entrepreneurship is not a battle of intellect, but more of persistency. So, or being persistent. And so, show up, keep building, keep going, every no is one step closer to the right yeses, right? The right partners, the right capital, the right investors, the right, even co-founders, customers, just like keep going and learn, right? Try not to embody the no's or personalize them. Just keep going.
I absolutely love that, Alisha. Another thing, lastly, before we end and wrap up, do you guys want to just mention where founders can reach out to you, whether that's socials or anywhere else?
Sure. LinkedIn is great. I can go ahead and put my LinkedIn in the chat.
And also, if there were any questions that were not answered, there were plenty. I invite you founders to definitely email us if you have any pressing questions, anything that did not get answered. And our email is going to be startups@techstars.com. And I'm going to go ahead and put that down on the chat right now as well. And I also encourage everyone here, if you want to continue learning about anything regarding Techstars, the entrepreneurship journey, just the startup journey overall, we do host weekly events, and we have a digital events page, which I can also share on here as well. And we share a ton of valuable information. We have Techstars team members jump on and just share such amazing tips for you. Alisha, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. To everybody here in the audience, thank you so much as well. And we hope to see you on the next one.